Y'all planning for this?
Welcome back, TPR Nation. This is Jamie Shalansky in an episode of Worlds to Conquer. And today we are going to be talking about goal setting and productivity. And I know that about the time that you hear this, we are all sick of hearing about goal setting. But here's the reality. If you're sick of hearing about goal setting and productivity and efficiency in January, then you are never, ever going to make it to July with your goals. We have to constantly be working at this. We have to constantly be disciplined and have that endurance to learn how people that are where we want to be got there. And so let's talk today about three important things: repeatable processes, window versus mirrors, and after action reports. All right, repeatable processes. Man, I've got to tell you a story first. My grandmother always kept a really great house, but as she began to age, certain tasks were becoming harder and harder for her. And that was cleaning the floors and doing the dusting and the baseboards, etc., and then climbing up to do the chandeliers and that kind of stuff on the house. And so my dad said, Mom, I think it's time. I'd like to hire a housekeeper to come in one time a week on Wednesdays and make sure that the house is tidied up. Now, she kind of thought she liked the idea, but what we found was that the housekeeper called us, 2 months into it and said, Mr. Shalansky, I don't know if it makes sense for you to keep paying me to come clean the house because every time I show up, it's spotless. So my dad calls my grandma and my grandma says, well, Floyd Lee, hell yes, it is, because on Tuesday, I clean it top to bottom. And my dad said, Mom, I hired you a housekeeper on Wednesday to come in. And she said, I'm not having somebody come into my dirty house. How true is this? How true is this? That every time that we're about to invite somebody to come through our door, we want to make sure that they're seeing the best of us, right? And whether we hired a personal trainer and we had somebody come into our house to treat us about nutrition, before they show up, we're getting rid of the Twinkies and the Ding Dongs and all the processed food. And we say, oh no, we already eat super, super healthy. We already eat mostly vegetables and no carbohydrates and all of this kind of stuff, right? That's not true. We just purged our entire house so somebody didn't see the worst of us. And this is a really prohibiting factor for financial advisors. So whenever we do a conference and we're talking to people and we say, okay, great, here's what you need to go do, their response is, well, I already do that. I already do that. I already do that. And so that wall is built up telling us how they've already done something until we ask them, great, show it to me. Show me where you've already done this. Show me where it's already been documented. Show me the process. But here's the fact. That for most financial advisors working in the industry, most of the information about our clients, our processes, our procedures, and how we handle our business resides between our two ears. If you are the business owner and you died tomorrow, your team would be in a scramble to figure out what is happening with every single one of your clients, despite your use of Gorilla or Redtail or Infinity or any other CRM that exists out there. And if you think this is inaccurate, then do a mock audit with your team. Bring in some type of junior financial advisor. Say, here's the 12 tasks you have to go complete today. All of the information should be in our systems and through our policies and procedures. Go take care of these actions. And I guarantee you, they're not going to be able to do every single one of them. They might get halfway down your list, but they're not going to do it the way you did it. And they're not going to have the rationale behind why you do the things that you do. And they're not going to understand your clients as well as you do, because you have spent hundreds, if not thousands of hours working with a client and knowing them inside and out. And you've probably done maybe 20 hours worth of dictation during that entire relationship with that client. In fact, we are so adamant about this that we are even doing it in our own firm, is that, for the last 4 years, we really enhanced our systems. We've really enhanced our policies and our processes. We've created a lot of value adds. If you're an Invictus member, you already know that we have Toolkit 2.0 coming out so that you can literally upload your data and issue out value adds on a quarterly basis. It's super powerful. Not only can you design what you want to have inside of there for your own surge, but you can see what Matt, Micah, and I are going to be doing for our surges. So if you just want to hit the easy button and replicate what we do every single surge, you're able to do so. But as we did these things, we didn't take time to go back and update all of our policies, all of our processes, and all of our procedures. So So at the end of the year, I sat down with my leads and I said, great, show me all the documentation. If I was a brand new employee that we're going to hire in January, how would I perform XYZ task? And they're like, well, you couldn't do this because of that. And I said, okay, how would a brand new employee know that? And they're like, well, they wouldn't. They would have to ask. And so if the brand new employee can't find the information of how your firm works on a policy and procedure, then that policy and procedure isn't documented. And if it's not documented, it is not done. It is incomplete. It is a theory of how you might do things or how you customarily do things. It is not a documented policy or procedure or process. And so what we did in December was we sat down and we said, okay, what would a brand new person in relationship management do? What would a brand new operations person do in their job? And then the team had to go through and we had video content. We have written content, right? Because we got 3 different types of learners out there. And so what our goal was when we did this was we said, okay, after 45 days, we're going to go back. We're going to update things. We're going to document them. We're going to make sure we have them in what we call our internal wiki, right? Then we're going to do a mock audit day. And what we are going to do is we're going to take all of the operations people and we're going to have them work under the stewardship of our relationship manager lead. And then we're going to take all of our relationship managers and we're going to move them under our operations lead for one day. And during that single day, anyone that's being cross-trained in that person's other position should be able to follow the instructions written out in our policies and processes and execute simple tasks. And simple tasks can be something like how to schedule an appointment, how to get a hold of the financial advisor if something escalates, how to distribute funds out of an IRA, how to run a tax projection. We could do simple tasks like that. And if those team members that have a knowledge but no real understanding, because it's not what they do as a profession every day, of those different roles can't complete those simple tasks, then we have failed in our policies and processes to document every step along the way, which is great because good. Now we know how to go back and improve. We know what we need to do to make things different. So if you've got policies, processes, and procedures in between your 2 brains, you have got to get them out of your head and start creating a template and a format. And I want you to think of things like patterns. What is a repeatable process? And the fact that there are repeatable processes and recognized patterns in the world is the reason that we are all here. We all exist and are nourished because along the way in our nomadic society, we learned how to hunt, how to gather, and we began an agricultural society. We began to farm, and farmers began to realize that there were patterns. If we planted in the spring and we grew in the summer and we harvested through the winter, we can make it through the season. We could nourish ourselves over time. These were patterns, and those patterns were documented. And it wasn't just something that they thought of. They began to teach future generations. Here's what you have to do. Here's how this field has to stay fallow. This is how we plant over here. And we begin to do these patterns and processes so that it becomes repeatable for future generations. And you need to think of your practice in that manner. You need to think about what are all the repeatable things that you do on a daily basis that need to be documented and shown. Now, if you're not a great writer and you're not great at systematizing things and writing them down, hire a process writer. Go to Upwork.com and post a job for process writing. And you want to find somebody that's got either an English degree or technical writing background, somebody that's like a grant writer or a technical manual writer, somebody of that way, because they'll see the holes, the gaps, and they'll flush everything out for you. And so a lot of times, if we have systems and processes that live in our head and we don't have great writers to write about them, we'll do an audio just like with our dictation. We'll either do a Loom video. Loom is Loom, and that's how we do quick little training videos for our internal team. Or we'll just record a piece of dictation and say, hey, so-and-so, I need a process written. Here's step 1, step 2, step 3. Here's the purpose. Here's the goal. Here's the why we're doing these steps. Then we hand it over to our process writer, and the process writer is able to come up with everything that we need for a manual to be written on that subject matter. So really important that you take time and write this down, and not just time of what you think you have. Do a mock audit. Bring somebody outside into your practice to really examine and look at it and say, what are the areas that you neglected? What did you forget to get done? What do you constantly say that you have done, but you actually have not done? done. And once you start having to provide facts to support your theories, then it's really powerful. And we do this in all aspects, right? We just had a big post-surge. We had a big referral audit. We normally have a really strong referral process in our practice, but we noticed that our referrals began to decline because we took the foot off the gas pedal. We stopped doing the things that were working to ask for referrals from clients. And to nobody's great surprise, when we stopped doing the things that generated referrals, we stopped getting referrals. It was very clear to see the correlation between those things. So really making sure that you have somebody outside looking in. Don't deceive yourself. The worst thing in the world is to buy your own BS and to say, oh yeah, I run a great practice. I already have these things done. I already have these things done. Great. Well, pull out your numbers, do an audit, show somebody else, and then you'll see the gaps between what you think you have done and what you actually have done. So many of us, and this brings us to our second strategy, so many of us are sitting there looking at other people and wanting what they have, but not being humble enough to admit where we are and what we are not doing correctly. And so this is really people looking through a window instead of a mirror. When you're looking through the window, you're seeing the person drive by in the Bentley saying, man, I wish I had that. You're seeing the person board that private jet and say, I wish that was my lifestyle. And keep in mind what we talked about earlier this month about goal setting. Goal setting rules number 1, you can't make somebody else's goal for them, period. End of sentence, no ifs, ands, or buts. You cannot make them for them. And then goal setting rule number 2, a goal without a plan is a wish. A goal without a plan is a wish. Stop wishing for your life to happen. Stop wishing you made more money. Stop wishing that you had more time with your family. Stop wishing. Make a plan and achieve it. You are a financial advisor. You are a problem solver. You are the person who people go to with the most difficult, complex situations of their life and ask you for advice. They don't just ask you, they pay you for that advice. So what are you doing with your life? Are you setting goals that have no plans behind them and therefore just wishing things in your life would materialize? You have to stop looking out the window and start looking in the mirror and being totally honest with yourself. Be humble, be curious, be open to others. And you might not always like what somebody always has to say, but are they wrong about what they're saying? And leave your ego at the door, check it and say, wow, I really don't like what you have to say. It's making me super uncomfortable, but I'm going to take a moment and I'm going to recognize that you're absolutely right. We do this a lot when it comes to our mastermind groups and extreme accountability. That's why we have the no BS rule at the Perfect RIA. We've got to do the financial audits. We've got to have facts, not theories. You can't tell us how your practice is running in theory. You have to show us that in fact. And then when we all talk about it in greater detail, we start getting really, really uncomfortable. We start pushing each other because we want to see each other achieve a certain level of greatness that we were created to achieve. Everything that we're being pushed towards, everything that propels us forward is in our DNA to go and achieve. There has never in history been a greater time to be alive than right now. And even if there was, it doesn't matter because you weren't. This is the hand that you were dealt. These are the opportunities that we have in front of us. We live in the greatest country in the entire world. In the United States of America, there are no barriers to entry. We have everything at our fingertips. We can go achieve what other people can only dream of in other oppressed dictatorship societies. And so if we squander that ability, if we sit there and we're constantly wishing and hoping and watching our lives pass by, then shame on us. Nothing can stop us towards achieving our goals except for ourselves. So if you are watching out the window and looking at other people living the life that you want to live, go take the steps to achieve that level of greatness. Go level up. We talk about that you are the sum of the 5 people that you spend the most amount of time with. Who are these people? Are they friends that have been in your life for 20 or 30 years that really don't have what you have and you feel kind of bad if you leave them behind because you feel a part of you is forgetting your roots? Or are they people that are moving forward and constantly looking for greatness and that you're not having to hide a part of you to be around? You need to look for people and friends and peers and groups of individuals that propel you towards greatness, that want you to achieve more. The ones that aren't beating you up because you missed a dinner party, but said, hey, totally understand. We've all got a lot on our plate. Love to see you next time. The people that don't make us feel guilty, the people that don't make us feel bad about ourselves, the people that don't talk behind our back about the jealousy that they have about the lifestyle that we lead. How many times have you been around people that are from your past that you have a really hard time letting go of, but you know they're not part of your next future? You know that a part of you is leaving them behind because the things that they're talking about, the life that they're living, just isn't where you're at anymore. You need to learn the boundary of being able to honor that relationship and love that person, but know that sometimes people are in our lives for a season, and we can keep friendships when we sustain them, and there should be nothing bad about making us feel like we still want to include our life with people that are headed where we are going. A really great piece of advice we got from somebody once was the 20-year rule, and that was an individual that said, you know what, I love to hang out with people that are 20 years older than us because they kind of show us where life is headed, but it's really important to hang out with people that are 20 years younger than you because they keep you excited and they keep you fun and they keep you energetic. And so there's a balancing act between those two of them. So do you have that in your life? Are you around people that are maybe 20 years younger than you that you're inspiring and nurturing and help to grow and showing them the things that you wish you would have learned at that age? And then simultaneously, are you looking ahead? Who do you want to be in 10, 20 years? And are you surrounding yourself with people that are like that? I was working with a small business client, and there was a big merger and acquisition deal on the table. And the company that we were doing a memo of understanding with, the CEO of that particular company, it was not my client, but the way that he orchestrated and negotiated that deal verbally in a room full of people, I was so excited because I looked at him and I said, you are where I want to be. That skill is where I want to be. Where did you learn it? How do you get it? And how do I spend more time with you? So who are you surrounding yourself with that are not where you're at, but where you want to be? At the Perfect RIA, we are in the pursuit of perfection, and we have 2 levels of membership. We have our Invictus members for people that want that hands-on coaching, and then we have our Backstage Pass membership for people that are do-it-yourselfers that just want to see the products and then do everything themselves. And our Invictus members, they get this. They get the leveling up. They get surrounding themselves with people that are where they want to be, and they're willing to put their money where their mouth is. They're willing to go to the masterminds. They're willing to take on the classes. They're willing to do the coaching calls, and they're completely vulnerable. It's your money, your time, your energy. They're completely transparent and vulnerable, and they say, no, this is everything I have to show you. I want to surround myself with peers that are where I am and where I'm going. Show me how to get there. So it's really, really important to take that assessment and sit there and ask yourself, are you looking through a mirror or are you looking through a window? Don't let your life pass you by. The third thing I want to talk to you about is after action reports. And this is another element that's really, really critical in goal planning and goal setting. Along the way to achieving greatness, you will have failures, and those failures have to teach you how to get better over time. They cannot be inhibiting. They cannot stop you in your tracks, and you cannot admit defeat when you have those failures. I have learned way more from failure than I've ever learned from success. But every time we have a system breakdown, we implemented this a couple years ago in our office. We now have an after action report. So if something goes off the tracks, and it's going to, right? The pursuit of perfection does not mean we are perfect. It means we are pursuing a level of perfection. And that means constantly leveling up, constantly looking at where we want to be and how to get there. So when we have a breakdown in our office, and it does happen, we do an after action report. This is an incident report. This says who, what, how, when, and what policy was broke. Now, in our office, we have a get out of jail free card. If we have a team member that followed a process that was not in theory, but actually written down, documented, and they were following step by step, and something failed, that's not on the fault of the team members. That's on the fault of the leadership. We designed a process that failed. Good. Now we know how to identify it. Now we know how to correct it. Now we know how to fix it. There's no verbal reprimand. There's no written reprimand, and you're not going to get fired if you followed a process and had a failure. That's not a fireable offense. But if we have a written process and you deviated from it, now we're in a territory that does require some type of disciplinary action to include getting fired. So when we have that system failure, when we have that process deviation, when things just don't work out, we do an after action report. And whoever the lead of that department is has to fill out the report with the person that was instrumental in creating the failure. And that after action is literally a form, and it documents what happened, what went wrong, what process was followed, what process was ignored, and then what suggestions of what we need to do better next time. And then we do a quick review. We don't spend a day shaming someone about it. We literally say, okay, you know what? This was a big failure. I want this after action report filled out, and then I want 30 minutes on my calendar. As you know, I have calendar rules. I have 15-minute appointments, 30-minute appointments, and an hour-long appointments. These are not client appointments. These are internal appointments, center of influence appointments, vendor appointments, etc. 15 minutes, that's the average standard for most meetings. 30 minutes, we really got to unpack and go through things. You want an hour on my calendar, then you had better be life-changing. That means that hour better have changed something in the world dramatically. And it's not an arrogant thing, but I am true and honoring the commitments that I have made in my life. And that means coveting that time, not just for myself, but for the person that I'm also having that meeting with. I don't want to spend 15 minutes BSing about what the meeting should be about. I want the agenda filled out ahead of time, and I want to have a really constructive meeting so that when we're done, we can go do something else. And if we've got business to handle and we've got decisions to be made, I want those done 15, 30 minutes or an hour. An hour is life-changing, right? And then if we want to go hang out socially or do something together, get a drink, I'm all about it, but not during that coveted meeting time, not when I'm in my green zone, which is my highest productivity level. So when it comes to a team member derailing a process, policy, or procedure, I want the same thing for them. That's a 30-minute appointment. We need to unpack it. We need to go after the after action and discuss what we're going to do moving forward and have accountability around that. And we don't need to spend the entire day, the entire week, or 2 weeks wondering if we're going to still have a job, wondering if some other discipline is coming down the way, and wondering if we are good enough for the responsibilities that we've handled. And because I only employ absolute rock stars, that means that these are people that really value the work that they do. And when they fail, they're going to want to sit in it. They're going to want to sit in it for a really long time, and they're not going to give themselves permission to get back up. So as the steward of that organization, as the leader in my company, I must course correct that. I must give them a format to recognize a mistake, take accountability, problem solve, unpack it, and then get the hell back up. I do not care how many times you were knocked down. I care about how many times you pick yourself back up. And a lot of us that are stewards and leaders of organizations, we have team members that don't have the coping mechanisms to know how to deal with failure. They haven't had a lot of rejection. They haven't sat across from a client or a prospect and pitched them or increased their fees or heard about how we're not delivering enough value in their life and know what rejection feels like. And we know as financial advisors how uncomfortable that is. I spent a lot of time when I first got into financial services doing a lot of prospecting, and I got told no a lot of times. And one time somebody asked me, they said, how do you deal with that constant rejection? And I said, because every no is a not yet. They just forgot to say the rest of it. And it's okay because I still heard it. They sounded like no to you, but all I heard was not yet. And then that allows me to constantly deal with coming back to things even after rejection, because it's going to happen. We're going to be rejected. We're going to fail. We're going to have defeats, but we got to give ourselves the coping mechanisms and the tools to get back up. And as the leader of your organization, you have to look at your team members and give them the techniques to get themselves back up. And that's that after action report. That after action report allows them to get all the failure out of their head and identify things and write it down in a format. And it's not just an open letter, right? I don't hand them a blank page and say, tell me about all the things that went wrong, because that's a recipe for disaster. The first half is going to be how it's everyone else's fault but theirs. And at the bottom half is going to be all of their deepest insecurities. That's not what I'm here for. I'm not even licensed to handle all that, right? Instead, I want to know who, what, how, and then recommendations for what we need to do moving forward. I've got to give them that last part, which is the real critical part of the after action report, is now what are we going to do moving forward? Because there has to be a forward. And one of the things that I do, and I encourage you to do this with all your team members, is I tell them what are fireable offenses. And I said, listen, sometimes, we're real intense, we're real driven, and you're going to fail. And when you fail, you're going to be thinking, oh my gosh, maybe I'm not cut out for this job. Maybe I shouldn't be here. Maybe they're putting too much faith in me. Maybe I should quit. Maybe I'm going to get fired. And so instead, I want to take that off the table and say, hey, these are the fireable offenses. You do these, you're gone. See you later. Bye. No questions asked. You have to go. The best to you and your family moving forward, but I can't have you here as part of the team any longer. Anything other than those things, let's work through. Let's figure out how we course correct and how we learn from this failure so that next time we are better. Once you have that after action report done, it cannot be filed in a desk drawer or electronically organized into the great abyss. Instead, you have to do something with it. So in our systems, policies, and procedures, we will have a great debacle. Something will come undone, and then it'll list all the after actions. And then when we go to do that step in the future, our entire team has the opportunity to review the after action and say, oh, hold on a second. This is where they went wrong last time. I want to make sure I don't do that mistake again. Knowledge must be shared, good or bad. It has to be shared so that other people have the opportunity to learn. All right, TPR Nation, you know that this podcast is 100% about action items that you can take, regardless of your membership status, to radically transform different aspects of your life. Earlier this year, maybe it was late last year, you set some big, audacious goals, and I'm so proud of you for doing so. But when you set those goals, you now have to increase your level of efficiency and productivity, and that means you got to level up, and that means increasing your productivity. So what you need to do right away is take an inventory of all of the repeatable processes or patterns in your office. If you do something more than 2 times, it is a process. Identify those patterns, write them down. If you're not a good technical writer, go to Upwork.com and hire a technical writer to help you. And that way you can just list off what they need to be. Once you have them all documented, you are not done. You need to now bring somebody else into your office to do an audit and a review of those. You want to have complete humility behind it and allow a brand new person, either starting in your organization or from another organization, to see every step it takes. We're even doing this at Shalansky & Associates with our own policies and processes. We're switching our team members. We're doing a cross audit day in which the operations team has to work as an RM and the RM teams have to work as an operations team member. And I really hope by the time that this podcast airs, our leads have told their team members that. All right, then window versus mirror. Stop watching your life go by. Stop dreaming about what you want your life to be and start taking an inventory of where you're at and where you're going. You need to be looking at the mirror, not the window. Don't watch other people have what you want. Make a goal, develop a plan, and go achieve that. A goal without a plan is a wish. You know what the goal is. Break down the steps that you have to take to go achieve said goal. You make sure you surround yourself in a community of people that are like-minded or already where you want to be and help you level up to get where you're going. The last thing I want you to take immediate action on is create an after-action report. You have to empower your team members to know how to identify, recognize, and recover from failures when they happen. And this is true if you're a solo practitioner and you've got one employee, or if you have an enterprise office and you've got dozens of employees. You've got to implement those after action reports so that really gives everyone an accounting. You can't allow your team members to sit there and wallow in shame. Give them the tools necessary to identify, solve, and move forward. Another value behind that after action report is that you will also have a way for you as the leader of the organization to mentally checkmark that you went through that mistake and it's no longer on the open table. And then that way you're not afraid to hand off a task to a team member and thinking, my God, what if this goes wrong again? Because now you've already done it. You've already unpacked it and you've already set up your schedule where you had 30-minute appointment to really review things, go through it, and then close it. You have to keep moving towards the goals that you have set and the objectives you have as an organization without constantly being bogged down about the failures that you will go through. It's inevitable, right? But you got to give yourself the tool set and your team the tool set to get back up and recover from those failures. Okay, TPR Nation, this is Jamie Shalansky in an episode of Worlds to Conquer. Go find people who share your values and change the world.
Hold on before we go. Something that you need to know. This isn't tax, legal, or investment advice. That isn't our intent. Information designed to change lives. Financial planning can make you thrive. Start today, don't think twice. Be a better husband, father, mother, and wife. The perfect RIA, the perfect